Imagine the deepest place on Earth, below sunlight, where darkness is absolute and pressure is strong enough to crush metal like paper. Now consider this disturbing truth. 11 kilometers below the ocean, something is alive. Not just simple bacteria, but strange life forms that should not exist in such conditions. Creatures moving, feeding, surviving in a world that seems completely impossible for life. And what scientists discovered there completely changed what we know about life. But this raises a powerful question. What could possibly survive in such extreme conditions? Without sunlight, without warmth, without any familiar source of energy, how do these organisms stay alive? What do they eat in complete darkness? And are they even similar to the life forms we know on the surface? Some discoveries were so strange that scientists could not explain them at first, but the real answer is far more disturbing than you think. To understand this mystery, we need to look at a place called the Mariana Trench, specifically its deepest point known as Challenger Deep. This location is so deep that even Mount Everest would remain completely underwater there. The environment is harsh beyond imagination, with total darkness, freezing temperatures, and pressure powerful enough to crush steel instantly. The first human exploration happened in 1960 using a special submersible, and since then, modern robotic missions have continued to explore this hidden world. For decades, scientists believed that nothing complex could survive here. In the beginning, scientists approached the deepest parts of the ocean with very simple expectations. Based on everything known about life on Earth, they believed that only the most basic forms of life could survive in such an extreme environment. The absence of sunlight, the freezing temperatures, and the crushing pressure made it seem impossible for anything complex to exist. At most, they expected to find tiny microbes, organisms so simple that they could survive without needing energy from the sun. The idea of a functioning ecosystem was completely dismissed. According to early scientific thinking, life in that region would be isolated, minimal, and barely active. There would be no interaction, no food chains, and certainly no diversity. It was assumed to be a biological desert, empty of anything remarkable or complex. But this assumption was soon challenged in a way no one expected. As exploration technology improved and cameras reached greater depths, scientists began to notice something unusual. Strange deep-sea creatures started appearing in the footage. These were not simple microbes, but visible, moving organisms. Giant amphipods were found, much larger than their shallow water relatives. Translucent fish with ghost-like bodies appeared, almost invisible in the dark. Some creatures had no eyes at all, while others seemed to glow faintly in the darkness through a process known as bioluminescence. These discoveries were shocking because they directly contradicted earlier beliefs. Instead of a lifeless environment, there was movement, adaptation, and complexity. It became clear that life was not only surviving, but evolving in ways that were completely unfamiliar to scientists. As research continued, scientists uncovered even more surprising evidence that challenged traditional understanding. Microbial life was not just present, but thriving under extreme pressure that would destroy most known organisms. These microbes had developed unique biological systems that allowed them to function normally in conditions that were once thought to be completely uninhabitable. Even more surprising was the way these organisms obtained energy. Without sunlight, they could not rely on photosynthesis like plants and surface-level ecosystems. Instead, they used a process called chemosynthesis. In simple terms, these organisms converted chemical energy from substances like hydrogen sulfide into usable energy. This meant that life in the deepest parts of the ocean did not depend on the sun at all. It relied on chemical reactions occurring in the Earth itself. This discovery changed one of the most fundamental assumptions about life on Earth. Gradually, scientists began to see a larger pattern forming. These were not isolated organisms struggling to survive alone. Instead, they were part of a complete and functioning ecosystem. At the base were bacteria that used chemosynthesis to produce energy. These bacteria were then consumed by slightly larger organisms, which in turn became food for even larger predators. A full food chain existed, entirely independent of sunlight. This was a revolutionary discovery because it proved that ecosystems could exist in complete darkness. Life was not only adaptable, but capable of building complex networks even in the harshest conditions imaginable. However, just as scientists were beginning to understand this hidden world, something even more disturbing was discovered. But scientists were not prepared for what came next. As exploration went deeper and samples were collected, the discoveries took a darker turn. Inside some of these deep-sea organisms, scientists found traces of plastic. Tiny particles, carried down from the surface, had made their way into the bodies of creatures living 11 kilometers below the ocean. Even more alarming was the presence of toxic chemicals, substances that should never have reached such depths. This revealed a disturbing truth. Human pollution had not only affected the surface of the planet, but had reached even the most remote and extreme environments on Earth. The idea that the deepest parts of the ocean were untouched was no longer true. Even here, humans had left a mark. But the mystery did not end there. Some of these organisms were surviving conditions that should have destroyed their genetic material completely. The intense pressure and chemical exposure should have damaged their DNA beyond repair. Yet somehow, they continued to live and reproduce. This raised a terrifying question. If these organisms could survive in conditions that break the basic rules of biology, then what else might be possible? Scientists were left with a growing sense of uncertainty. The deeper they looked, the less they seemed to understand. And one question became impossible to ignore. So how are they even alive? At this point, everything changes. The most shocking truth is finally revealed. Life does not need sunlight to exist. For centuries, scientists believed that the sun was the foundation of all life on Earth. Plants use sunlight, animals depend on plants, and the entire system is connected. But deep below the ocean, this rule completely breaks. Life here survives without any connection to the sun. Instead, it depends entirely on chemical energy. This process, known as chemosynthesis, allows organisms to convert chemicals from the earth into usable energy. It is a completely different system of life, one that operates in total darkness. Even more fascinating are the extreme adaptations that make this survival possible. The cells of these organisms are built to withstand crushing pressure that would destroy ordinary life instantly. Their structures are flexible yet strong, preventing collapse under immense force. Inside their bodies, unique enzymes continue to function normally, even under conditions that would stop most biological processes. These adaptations are not small changes. They are fundamental differences in how life operates. And this leads to a much bigger implication. If life can exist in such extreme conditions on Earth, then it could also exist in places we never imagined before. Scientists have begun to look beyond our planet with new curiosity. Moons like Europa, orbiting Jupiter, and Enceladus, orbiting Saturn, are believed to have oceans beneath their icy surfaces. These oceans are dark, cold, and possibly filled with chemical activity similar to what is found in the deep ocean on Earth. The conditions may be different, but the principle remains the same. If chemical energy is present, life might find a way. This idea transforms our understanding of the universe. What we found at the bottom of Earth might not be unique. It might exist across the universe. To understand this clearly, let us break it down step by step. First, how does life actually survive in such an environment? The answer lies in chemosynthesis. Unlike photosynthesis, which uses sunlight, chemosynthesis uses chemical reactions to produce energy. Deep-sea organisms rely on chemicals released from hydrothermal vents. These vents push out hot, mineral-rich fluids from beneath the Earth's crust. Microorganisms use these chemicals as their energy source, forming the base of the entire ecosystem. Next, consider how their bodies adapt to such extreme conditions. Their cell membranes are flexible, allowing them to function under immense pressure without breaking. At the same time, their metabolism is extremely slow. This helps them conserve energy in an environment where resources are limited. Every process in their body is optimized for survival under stress. Finally, their appearance may seem strange, but it is perfectly logical. In complete darkness, there is no need for vision. That is why many of these creatures have no eyes. Instead, some produce their own light through bioluminescence. This light helps them communicate, attract prey, or defend themselves. What may look like something out of a nightmare is actually a highly efficient survival system. These are not monsters, but highly specialized life forms adapted perfectly to their environment. This discovery carries a powerful message. Life is far more resilient than we ever imagined. It can adapt, evolve, and survive in conditions that once seemed completely impossible. This forces us to rethink a fundamental question. If life can survive here, in one of the harshest environments on Earth, then where else could it exist? The possibilities suddenly become much larger. At the same time, there is a darker realization. Even the deepest and most remote parts of our planet are not untouched by human activity. Pollution has reached places we once believed were completely isolated. This shows how deeply connected our actions are to the entire planet, and it also reminds us that there is still so much we do not know. The unknown parts of Earth may still hold secrets more shocking than space itself. The deepest part of our planet is not empty, it is alive, a hidden world, thriving in darkness, challenging everything we thought we knew about life. If you found this fascinating, you will enjoy exploring more mysteries about the unexplored places on Earth, because the scariest mysteries are not always out there in space. Sometimes they are still hidden beneath us.